Welcome back, everyone, to Crystal Confab. I am joined by my fellow Confabbers, Adam and Kyle. And this week, we're talking about another weird rock. Truth be told, when this showed up on the lineup, my immediate reaction was, finally tracked down a piece of this pretty rare mineral. And the mineral of the week is Ussingite. So this is unusual because, a lot of things get called rare that are out there in the crystal world, and sometimes that is slightly exaggerated. But there are only three countries in which Ussingite can be found, and it is not plentiful in any of them. It comes only from Greenland, Canada, and Russia so far. Maybe at some point we'll find it somewhere else. It's got some pretty unusual geological properties, which I'm going to circle back to a little bit later. But it's also worth noting that it hasn't been around for super long either. It's something that was discovered scarcely more than a century ago. I think we're just shy of 111 years right now. So we're not going to find it in traditional folklore. We're not going to find it in your average crystal book because it's so rare. And that's what really excites me about this. So without further delay, I'm actually going to hand this over to my friends who've spent more time playing with Ussingite than I have.
Yes, I've got a confession to make. I'm the one who put this one on the lineup. And it goes back probably about around 10 years now when I was just surfing on good old Etsy one day looking for whatever I could find. And I came across this jeweler who did wire wrapping and specialized or seemed to get a lot of cabochons from stones from Greenland. And this is where I discovered stones like Numite, Tugtapite, Cordicite, Greenlandite, and of course Ussingite. And apart from taking several weeks to work out how to pronounce each of these, I just fell in love with these stones. Now, what I find with Greenland stones, any of the ones I've listed, plus there are plenty more as well, they have this rare, almost ancestral, ancient energy about them. And I think what I love about Ussingite so much is I'll hold it to the screen so hopefully the camera is picking up a nice color. But when you find a really nice piece, even if you look on on the internet and look at images of it, it's got this really beautiful pink, purple, mauvey color that you don't see a lot in the crystal world. And I must admit, this is my second stone. The first one that I actually had in a tumbled stone when I lived in Bahrain in the Middle East a couple of years ago. I had to take the essential crystals with me, which was about 200, and they lived on a top shelf in a box. Now, one day I was about to leave my apartment, and the I heard this crash, and I run down, work out what it is. All the box with all the jewelry and all the tumbled stones had fallen to the ground, and everything seemed fine. And I walked out the door and went, "Oh God, that's not good." Came back, and only two things had broken, and it was my favorite tumbled stone of Ussingite, which was this beautiful shade, and I still have it. But it's one of those, when we break a crystal, I think we've talked about it before. It's like you lose a child almost in that way, and there's a real responsibility behind it. But let me talk about why I love this crystal so much. What I find this crystal to be really, really beautiful for is it really helps to make a connection between the spiritual world and the physical world or our practical reality. Let me explain this a little bit. What we often find is, we may go to a spiritual class, we might go to church, we might do a meditation, read a great kind of book that helps connect and really reach with our soul. And we feel that real kind of sense of completeness and, there's a greater meaning to life and I know where I'm going and all that kind of thing. And then you get in the car and then some dickhead cuts you off in traffic and you're like, ah, beep, beep, beep. And you lose that touch. A lot of the time, I've heard the term before of Sunday Christians, which is someone who goes to church on Sunday, is all very holy and now and does all the right things and um, whatever Christians do. And then for the rest of the week, though, they're a total ass to everyone. So this really helps you to bring that centeredness in for circumstances when you are being pushed, when someone is annoying you. How can you remain focused? How can you remain in a state of love rather than kind of losing your top in that type of way? I was recently, earlier this year, reading a really great book on different Japanese concepts. And I know Nicholas loves Japanese different aspects as well, but this was the concept of wabi sabi. And for me, it talks about the acceptance of imperfection and impermanence. So, celebrating things like not throwing out a bowl because it's got a chip in it, but actually celebrating that. And, honoring bits of wood that are not even in their grain or the way that they grow. And in this world where we're often need to get everything perfect and need to get everything in a certain way and feel irritated if it's not in alignment, when we go out into nature, nothing's in alignment, nothing's perfect, everything's doing its own thing. I find Ussingite is a really great one for helping us to accept where we are on our journey, but to stay aligned with our soul purpose and to navigate our way through it. It's got a really peaceful energy. I love it for work with Piscean energy. The Piscean energy really does want to have one foot in the spiritual realm and one foot on the earthly realm. And it helps you navigate those two as well. It works because of its color. I find it's one of my favorite crystals for the soul star chakra. So our crown chakra connects you to just our individual spiritual path, whereas the soul star chakra, found about 30 centimeters above the crown, and I find it resonates with this Ussingite color, is really, really beautiful for helping you to kind of see the bigger picture. So I think this is the original wire wrapped pendant I got of my Ussingite. When I wear this, it's on days or times that I want to commit to being connected to the greater whole, the bigger picture, the spiritual picture, and staying in alignment with that, not just when I'm, sitting out in nature meditating, but all the time as I navigate through the day. Because becoming a spiritual person isn't about sitting on the mountaintop. It's about being able to find peace in the middle of the chaos, in the middle of a busy train, as you walk through city streets, as you navigate a traffic jam. Those are the kind of tests when people around you are really pushing you. That's where Ussingite becomes a really powerful tool. And so one place where I'd suggest people might want to love it or might want to really utilize it is when you do go, maybe you go on a weekend retreat. And there's always that Monday remorse. Do you mean like you're back into the real world with all the muggles? You're like, how do I maintain that beauty? Carry your Ussingite with you. Take it to the retreat, take it to the class, but then keep it with you to help you anchor that in and keep you really aligned. So that's just a little bit of a nutshell why I really, really love it. But Kyle, how long have you had Ussingite for?
Well, I can happily blame you for my connection to Ussingite. This was a piece I bought in one of your live sales. I don't know how many years ago. I've tried to color match it as best possible. I like Ussingite, and I kind of call upon it not even semi-regularly. It sits in a really lovely grid, and I go back and forth whenever I need it. And it's been about kind of similarly to Adam, rising above mundane energy, day-to-day, boring life kind of stuff, helping to see a bigger picture, helping to be more positively engaged, less kind of bothered, less frustrated, more kind of childlike, a bit of hope, a bit of wonder, a little bit of removing yourself from your human blur and all of the blur that surrounds that human blur, so you can connect more to your spirit, more to the big energy that exists outside of your human body. And as someone that deals with a lot of chronic pain, it's been really useful for kind of separating myself from what I feel. Like, it's not everything. Yes, your body and your pain are definitely indicators, but when it's chronic pain and it's everyday, it's not always an indicator. It's because I have bulging discs and it affects my nerves and I need to lay down because I've been standing up too long. Like, it's so simple sometimes, but we can get caught up in, oh, I have to do the dishes and I have to do this and I have to do this and I have to dress in a certain way, I have to look a certain way, and I have to act a certain way. And it, for me, is a reminder to bring yourself what makes you happy, what makes you joyful, a little bit of childlike energy, a little bit of that youthful, I'm going to do my hair silly, I'm going to wear what makes me happy, I'm going to listen to music when I'm doing the dishes so it's less boring, I'm going to wear color so life is less boring, I'm going to make sure I speak to that person that always makes me feel really good. I'm going to stop in and get myself a cup of coffee in the morning because it helps me through the day. And I actually love my baristas. They're amazing and they're such a vibe. And the little things that help you get through the mundane makes life worth living, makes life more enjoyable, makes life less mundane, makes life less depressing, less frustrating, less bleh. right? You can enjoy it a lot more. I pair it a lot with stones like rose quartz, phosphosiderite, strawberry quartz, cobaltocalcite, these sort of stones that uplift the heart and are really positive emotionally. I find them pairing beautifully together. And it's for me, like there's always an emotional thing that's behind it, like why I'm stuck or why I'm frustrated or why I'm connected in my body too much and I need to separate myself a little bit. And so I find that understanding your emotions but not being controlled by them, I think, is Ussingite, one of Ussingite's really useful helpers, being less bothered by other people's stuff, by the stuff on the news that you can't control, by kind of the things that are out of your reach. It helps to kind of there are several many birds that use like hydrothermal's not the right word, thermal winds, thermal air to rise up. Eagles, hawks, birds of prey. But for me, Ussingite connects to pelican. Like the idea of being like, they don't look like they should soar the way they do, right? They are able to just go up and up and up without putting any effort. And it's just, they're not graceful when they're eating, they're not graceful when they're yawning or on land, but sometimes we're in places where we don't feel graceful. But when we're able to go where we're meant to be, up in the air, when we're able to kind of feel weightless, we can see so much. We go where we need to go. We will generally be with those that we need to be with. Generally, you don't see them flying by themselves. You see them, with a pack of a couple. It's very that connection, because they live on the water, they eat fish, but they're in the air, right? Our mind and our emotion kind of linking together, but also being able to separate, being able to rise above it all, being able to, yes, I look funny on land, don't judge me, I'm not my human form, I'm bigger than that, there's more to me than that, I can soar above things, I can be graceful, I can be this looming shadow in the sky when I cross past the sun. It's the ability to see yourself as so much more than what you see in the mirror, I think, is the crux of the message that I get from Ussingite. It's happier, more positive. It's less grey than I feel like I see some days. And it's a really lovely reminder to uplift and kind of remove yourself a little bit, not detach, but remove yourself a little bit from the mundane.
I really love that analogy of the pelican. That brings it to light really beautifully. And I think I've kind of been affected because a few weeks ago I got to see Mel Robbins talk, and one of her guiding principles that she teaches is that kind of let them. People are going to get angry, people are going to do their thing, and rather than getting engaged in it, that idea of just let them. I think I would really resonate with that. Another thing that came up while you were talking as well, Kyle, is we've discussed it between ourselves when we're not recording, and I've spoken to other professionals in other um, arenas as well. Someone who's a professional public speaker, and we've noticed that after COVID, there seems to be less willingness of people to get out the door and go and do things and explore things. And we've found, maybe we'd have a full moon get together before COVID, and we just the ticket link would go out and 30 people would book in and you're fully booked kind of thing. Whereas now you're getting lower numbers. And I don't think it was really interesting to hear from someone who's a inspirational speaker mainly for sporting teams, has just found that the work has dropped down for him and is only starting to pick up now type of thing. So there seems to be, in all arenas, people are less willing to get out the door, to go and learn about different things and to awaken that curiosity. And I think that is a really good one for reminding us that there's more than Netflix to this world, and to get out there and discover new things. So it's kind of a really relevant one for this area right now, isn't it?
I totally agree. We need to be more engaged in our lives. We need to be more engaged and less like this. The irony of us speaking through screens and podcasts while we're doing this is not lost on me. But we are allowed to like leave the house. We are allowed to experience the world. We are allowed to positively engage in our own lives. I think that's the key here. It's like we are allowed to kind of take the wheel back, like I can do this, I'm going to do this, this is what I want to do, so I'm going to do it.
Fully agree. Now, just hold on, everyone. Before you just like stop watching this and go outside and connect with the community, give us a few more minutes because I'm really curious, and I'm sure you are curious as well. I want to know what Nicholas has to say. It's a new stone for him. He hasn't worked with it much. So, before you run off, Nicholas.
Yeah, thank you. So, I have allowed my one and only piece of Ussingite to be my pocket rack on a good number of days since it arrived in my home. It has sat on or adjacent to my sacred space ever since it arrived. I don't know why, but there is this I won't say attachment that I feel to it, but it brings me a lot of sort of passive joy. Even when I'm not actively working with it, it has this kind of elevating quality to the space that it's in. And in the kind of lead up, getting ready for this episode, I really wanted to kind of unpack it. I'd had enough time to really sit with it that I felt finally I would take a deep look at its geology, maybe compare what some other folks have to say about this rock as well, and see how it all kind of ties together. And to understand Ussingite, we have to understand what geological kind of process is involved, what event makes it so rare. And the truth is that it is deficiency in other things that allows for this to form. So Ussingite occurs in three spots on Earth that have very similar geologies. They're known for a type of rock that are called agpaites. They're agpaitic intrusive igneous rocks. Basically, what that means in short version is that they contain complex silicate minerals, often filled with pretty rare and unusual mineral forming elements, and they're relatively deficient in alumina in particular, but also sometimes in silica, depending on which variety of agpaitic rock it is. So we're going to see things like sodalite minerals and astrophyllite and titanium and zirconium bearing things like maybe some eudialyte or volarite or loperite or lamprophyllite and other things that are pretty unusual. And the thing about agpaitic rocks is they tend to be richer in things like sodium and calcium than they are the much more abundant things in these environments normally, like silicon and aluminum. And that allows Ussingite to kind of sit in this transitional space. It's not quite one thing or another. It shares a lot of qualities with feldspathoids, which are too silica deficient to be feldspars. It is sometimes classed as a phyllosilicate. When you look at the silica structure in it, they do kind of form sheets, but they also don't entirely. They're sometimes described as framework silicates because the sheets are a little too three-dimensional instead of sitting in flat planes. But I think the weirdest part about its crystal structure that is that it shows really strong depolymerization. So the links of things, all of those atoms and ions coming together to form the molecules should link up and create well observable chains. And some things just don't connect to other things. They have these silica rings in them that have variable numbers of units as well. They can have 4 bits of silica or 6 bits of silica or 8 bits of silica. And it is this kind of not quite one thing or the other that I think allows this to be quite an initiatory stone. It is a sodium aluminum silicate hydroxide. We don't have to memorize that, but it is pretty well saturated with sodium compared to a lot of other things that are, we'll say, generally similar. And sodium in mineral form, among other things, is deeply cleansing, catalyzing, reactive, but maybe a better word would be responsive. And I do find it kind of initiatory. Minerals that are rich in sodium help us explore new things while also helping us build the structure and organization to give us the freedom to do so. What I find in this stone, as we see with this kind of partially depolymerized structure where those chains don't quite form full, totally uninterrupted chains, um, is that it's all about breaking old cycles. It is deconditioning and reconditioning the spirit, the mind, if we want to maybe step out of cycles of anger, cycles of worry, cycles of abuse, cycles of, family curses that play out through our lives, the cycle of being the victim or being the bully. This is a stone that, with so much grace and tenderness, helps to break those things down. It's going to give us permission to experience emotional release where necessary, grieve what you're losing, but also celebrate what you're gaining in that process. It helps enable a sense of higher reasoning and higher perspective that also is going to, I think, underscore both of your experiences, this kind of elevation effect that it's got, and a willingness to be messy in that process. One of the things that I really love about it, though, is its crystal system. It belongs to my favorite group of crystals, geometrically speaking, which are the triclinic minerals. These are the ones that have the least amount of order and symmetry of crystals. They still have order and symmetry, just less than any of our other groups. And triclinic minerals, as a result, invite us to look at things more deeply, to really find the pattern, to really see how this little bit is like other little bits. And because we don't have a solid chain, its energy kind of reminds me of the expression. And I wish I could remember where this comes from, but I've heard it several times recently. But it's kind of a new take on an old expression. History repeat itself, but it rhymes. New iterations of the cycle don't have to be identical to still be a kind of repetition. And this is a stone that I think, because of its structure, its makeup, is all about helping us discover how our worldview, our beliefs, our attitudes, whether we are conscious or unconscious of them, give rise to the challenges or interact with the challenges that we have in life, and allows us to explore those in more refined and sophisticated ways. Triclinic minerals help integrate new things. They are these masters of reinvention. If we wanted to have like a two-dimensional polygon that is obeys the laws of a triclinic crystal, we could think of a trapezoid. And the only way to tessellate and fill all of the space with a trapezoid, unlike a square, a rectangle, a triangle, is to invert it constantly. It has to be in many different orientations to fill all of the space available. And that's kind of what's happening with a lot of triclinic minerals. There's unit cells or sort of seed crystals have to flip and flop to fill all of the space and create the crystals as we know them. And this means that it allows us to things that aren't working, to explore it from a totally new angle, to trust our instincts that say, I'm gonna veer left instead of right at this juncture in life, even though logically I know I really ought to be doing this other thing. And as a result, they usher us towards a state of completion and refinement. They balance opposing. They lift up to have, ultimately, I think, this more enlightened perspective of the world. Not that you reach nirvana and everything is bliss, but you recognize that everything is delightfully human. And being able to take some delight in the messiness, also kind of coming back to this wabi-sabi, this cool and withered principle that Adam was referring to, just embracing the imperfections. It's just being with it. It's allowing yourself to find the magic in the ordinary and to see that there's a common thread. And also, when you want to, snip the thread. We don't have to let the cycles repeat and transform. And with the broken ends, weave something new. That for me is the magic of Ussingite so far.
With us having over 50 episodes of Crystal Confab now, I forget what we've talked about and what we haven't. But this being a really rare crystal, I wanted to kind of share the idea of, rare crystals are there in the world for those to do higher crystal work, or for, it's not for everyone. Does everyone need Ussingite? But for everyone who's tuning in and listening to this episode, do you feel that this is a crystal everyone should seek out and try and get in their collection, Kyle?
My goodness. I think with any, it's if you feel drawn to and you can and it's practical, absolutely. I rarely see it, so I would like it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be one of those ones that is a challenge. I would say, as we've recommended in the past, get yourself a picture, get yourself an image that you can manifest with and draw yourself a piece with if you do feel drawn to it. I would definitely say if you are, definitely try it because it doesn't feel like anything else really. Like it's not one of those ones where you go, I could compare it to phosphosiderite or I could compare it to whatever, but it's not really the same as them. It's not really doing the same thing. It is kind of its own special, unique thing. So if you can, wonderful. If you can't, take a screenshot, get yourself a picture, work with the idea of what we've been talking about as well. This is the other thing, like you can take the wisdom from the wisdom and just incorporate the wisdom without having to hold the thing, without having to touch the thing. Yes, it's wonderful. Yes, it does help. But if the wisdom is useful, take that as well.
Nicholas, is this something everyone should be trying to find desperately now?
I'm really anti being prescriptive of like everybody needs blank rock. I think we're going to be drawn to the things that we are drawn to. It is not easy to find. When you do find a rather ugly lump, you're going to spend an exorbitant amount of money. And if you get a really nice piece, let's not talk about it. Um, these days, it is far less plentiful than it was in years past. And so if you get access and it resonates with you and it's not a prohibitive cost, go for it. Those qualities were all met for me. I said, you know what? I can spend 30 bucks, $35 on this little hunk. And that was like the best price I'd seen in ages. And so I did because I had the invitation to it. I'm glad that I did. But, I also think that if there are particular qualities of it that we want to aim for, look for things that have similar things in its makeup. Look for things that have similar crystal structures. There are tons of triclinic minerals out there. You may not find any other, sodium, aluminum, silicate hydroxide with exactly the same ratio of those things because it's a weird rock. But you're going to find other things out there that maybe you can kind of mix and match. A little of this energy plus a little of that energy could yield something that kind of moves you in the general direction that Ussingite also moves you in.
Can I push you for a few different crystals you reckon might work in that realm, Nicholas?
Yeah, so I mean, start with something real easy like sodalite, which is a proper feldspathoid mineral. You could also go for some of the feldspars. They are aluminosilicate minerals. You can find some that are in the sodium-rich members of the series. So go for any of those. If you just Google feldspars or feldspar diagram, you can find, um, all of the available ones. Um, there are lots. We think of them as, not just moonstone and sunstone, but plenty of other things. You could also maybe look for the kind of host rocks in which it is found, those agpeitic rocks or peralkaline rocks. Probably the easiest one, and easy is relative here, is to look for some kind of syenite. So syenite is like granite, but deficient in quartz. Um, you could also look for a cacordicite, which you mentioned earlier. That is like the quintessential agpaite from the region known as Agpa in Greenland, hence the name agpeitic rock. You might get one of those that has trace amounts of this in there as well. And when all else fails, if you're just thinking, I really love this quality that the triclinic crystals have, there are lots of those. So we've got some of our feldspars, like labradorite and most rainbow moonstone. We could think of something along the lines of kyanite as a really great example as well of a triclinic mineral. But think outside the box and also evaluate. Another, I think, great question to ask is, why am I drawn to Ussingite? If it's a specific quality one of us has mentioned, there's probably another rock with a similar quality. But if it's because I want Ussingite, then go for that.
Be a little bit of devil's advocate. I would propose that the fact that if you saw this title on this episode and went, "Oh, I want to listen to that," then you'd definitely be ready for Ussingite. That you're kind of in that expansive, I want to know more about the crystal realm, and didn't go, "Oh, It's not amethyst or rose quartz. I'm not interested in listening to that episode. So, explore that. Now, one of the common questions we do get is, where should I get my crystals from? And the first place you'll often hear all of us say is go down to your local crystal shop, because we want to support those independent local crystal shops, because touching, feeling, experiencing the crystal is so much better online. Now, to be honest with you, I haven't been able to find, I don't think, many of my Greenland crystals, the ones we've listed throughout this episode, in local crystal shops, and they often can't find them. What I would propose you look for Greenland stoned dealers. They seem to have the whole set, and I found a few online. I found one at Tucson in the past. I don't know if he still goes there each year, but there seems to be people that have not just Ussingite, but they'll have the tugtite and the Numite and the Greenlandite and the Isua stone and all those different great ones that are nice to have as well. So you may have to do a bit of finding, but once you find it, yeah, maybe you need to save your pennies beforehand, because it could become costly, because you end up not just wanting Ussingite, you want one of each then as well. One final question, because I always like to talk about use of crystals, and I think what Nicholas shared about just having it in your pocket, just having it around you, is a really good anchor for what we've been discussing and the principles we've discussed in this episode. But you keep yours. I know you're kind of like the grid king, Kyle. What's the purpose of the grid that Ussingite's in, and what other crystals accompany it, if you don't mind sharing?
Absolutely happy to. So it is in a sort of very love, heart, emotion grid. All of the crystals in that grid are in the pink spectrum. We have rose quartz, rhodochrosite, we have rose aura quartz, we have phosphosiderite, we have cobaltocalcite, and we have rhodonite. So it's very self-love driven. It's very, this is what I need for me to feel good. This is what I need to support myself. This is a big hug. This is, yeah, it's very loving and very supportive. And the one that it balances with is, I mentioned before, phosphosiderite. They have this, like, phosphosiderite's like the cloud, and like Ussingite's the thing flying through it. Like, they're both up there in the sky. They're both like soft, and they're both kind of giving us a bit of a perspective shift. And it's I think it's one that works well with others. Like, it plays well with others. It's one of those stones that really will pair and match. And just on the if you can't get a piece thing, there was a trio that came to my mind that felt quite appropriate, and three really easy stones to get a hold of: sodalite, lepidolite, and halite. That pair of the three together feels like a really nice connection without connecting to it.
I love that suggestion of phosphosiderite, and the fun thing about phosphosiderite and Ussingite is they're both really fun to say as well. One other little pointer that I do often find Ussingite to be good for, you mentioned rhodochrosite before. That's one of my favourite crystals for helping us connect with family members that are past and our ancestors and those that are in our bloodline. But sometimes we want to connect with possibly a friend or something like that. And one of my favourite crystals for that is actually Ussingite. So that's another use as well. Well, it's time for you to get out there and enroll in a local crystal class and explore the world. We're going to wrap up the episode, but we will be back very, very soon. We've got a whole bunch of other gifts from Mother Nature that come from the earth that we can't wait to explore with you, and we'll talk to you very soon. Until then, take care and blessed be.